I was like, no, that's not me. I'm so organized because I have 10 different ways of organizing everything, right? So maybe that means you're not good at organization. I've let go such huge potential opportunities because I just couldn't get myself together.
Were you happy that the therapist brought it up?
You're like, am I just tricking everyone? Am I just creative and aloof? Maybe I'm just a really interesting person and, everyone has it wrong.
Are you ever worried that people won't take ADHD seriously?
I have to learn to communicate this, otherwise I'm hurting people.
This is ADHD Aha, a podcast where people share the moment when it finally clicked that they have ADHD. I am so excited to be here today with Kate Hammer. Kate is a writer, director, and performer originally from Canada and now based in Scotland. She currently works in the story room for the soap opera River City and is a staple of the UK stand-up comedy scene. Kate, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited as well.
So listeners, you need to know that one of the many reasons that Kate is amazing is also the reason that I found out about her was through viewing a short film called Bear, which Kate stars in and directed. It absolutely captivated me. It has a really interesting way of making invisible disabilities visible. We're going to get into all of that. So let's get started, Kate. I like to start by asking folks, when were you diagnosed with ADHD?
I was actually diagnosed not that long ago. So I'm 32 now. I think it was, at the end of 20 when I was 29. So just a couple years ago. And it wasn't too bad of a process for me. I did get diagnosed in the UK, talked with a couple nurses, got the right references, and got my diagnosis by letter, actually. I felt like Harry Potter.
Tell me about this, because the process is different. There was something about writing letters that was required as part of the evaluation process. I've never heard of this. Can you explain what that was?
Yeah. So actually, it was my therapist at the time that suggested that I had ADHD, and I didn't believe him. I was like, no. I used to babysit a boy who had ADHD, and I do not have the same symptoms as him. That's not me. I'm so organized. And he would go, yeah, well, why are you so organized? And it's like, because I have 10 different ways of organizing everything.
Right.
So maybe that means you're not good at organization. So it took a bit of convincing, actually. And then he gave me a bit of advice and kind of warned me, I think, on how hard it might be to get a diagnosis. So yeah, in the UK, the way of doing it is I had to submit a request to my GP. They gave me back a form to fill out, a questionnaire, and I had to return it with a letter from myself, someone who had known me for less than 5 years, someone who had known me for more than 5 years, and then one or both of my parents. And It spoke a lot about how is Kate growing up and what kind of things, stood out to you then.
It does sound really interesting. It sounds very elaborate in a good way. I'm picturing these letters in cursive. They probably weren't, but maybe just go with me. They were all handwritten, yes. I imagine. Calligraphy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Written by candlelight.
Yeah. Did you learn things about how people saw you that surprised you?
Yeah, because and this feeds into, I guess, my whole relationship with ADHD is how much imposter syndrome goes along with it. And so even from the get-go, you're like, am I just tricking everyone? Am I just creative and aloof? Maybe I'm just a really interesting person and, everyone has it wrong. It was important for me, I think, to read those letters from everyone to go, oh, I'm not hiding these things as well as I thought I was, or things I didn't even realize about myself. How much I did fidget, or the things about yourself you don't think are different because you don't realize them. They're just you. So it's always that, outside looking in perspective that is refreshing, because obviously no one wrote it with intent to hurt my feelings.
Right.
And I needed, people couldn't be like, well, sometimes Kate gets fidgety. They had to, tell the truth and leave my feelings out of it. The hard one to read was when you're having a conversation with Kate, it doesn't always feel like she's there.
Yeah.
And that, it's hard, but I think that was important for myself to understand that I have to learn to communicate this because otherwise I'm hurting people. I think it was one of those moments where it doesn't feel like, it's not that ADHD is a bad thing, but you go, I can't necessarily fully change this, but I can change the way I do it, which makes it okay, like brings everyone in and makes it okay.
Oh, I feel that's hard. I mean, a lot of growth coming out of it, obviously, but
Yeah.
to be, it's not critiqued because they're just writing an open, honest letter with no negative intent,
Yes.
right? But to have called out things that are so core to your essence when you're with people every day, and to have people comment on that's emotional.
Do you know what? Don't get me wrong. I feel like there have been so many moments, like you said, just of emotional, that feels so cathartic that you're almost forgiving your past self in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
forgiving the people around you. Also, when you're growing up for maybe being a bit frustrated, you get it. But also, again, the frustration with yourself. So I think ADHD for me is a lot of unlearning of being upset with myself for the way I work or trying to fit into, those round holes that my square hole, peg won't ever fit into.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's an ongoing journey.
So this is kind of uncharacteristic for me to ask, but were you happy that the therapist brought it up in hindsight? Because it sounds like you were just kind of humming along in your life, and this wasn't even a fledgling possibility in your brain.
When he first brought it up, I think I was quite annoyed because at the time, without me feeling like I was struggling or, inadequate in any way for, a therapist to go, do you think you have this? I think you have this. And I was just like, what are you talking about? But basically, the diagnosis was good for me to understand myself and have access to a toolkit that I didn't know existed otherwise. Getting rid of so much shame around things, like, instead of going, oh, I'll never be good enough at cleaning or organizing because I'm not following the way other people are good in that way, and getting rid of that guilt and shame, and then learning to use, well, I do it this way, so how can I make that better and more efficient? And know that, like, this is a full, successful life. This is no different than somebody who doesn't need reminders of to pay basic things or to brush your teeth. That's not a failure.
Right.
It's what I need to be a success, not only in that, but in every other part of my life. Yeah.
What types of ADHD challenges do you think in your life you felt, whether pre or post diagnosis, the most shame and guilt around?
I think it's kind of split into parts. One is like the at-home aspects of it. Why can't I keep things organized or clean? Why do I have to see everything? And then I think the other part of it is professionally or aspirationally. So I just know I have beat myself up about deadlines, because being in a creative industry, the biggest thing is like keeping on needing to apply to things with new scripts and things, pitches and everything. And that's what gets you, to those next levels, or, job applications, feeling like things are so important. And then you go to check or submit to them and it's the deadline's passed and you can do nothing about it, because it makes you look worse if you email in and be like, I thought it was 5 p.m., not 12 p.m., and now I've missed it, and so I think that's, I know I've just like gone into spirals of feeling like I've let go such huge potential opportunities because, at that point of thinking, I just couldn't, get myself together.
Did these experiences inform Bear, the short film that you directed and starred in? Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because there's the film and then there's you, and I know that it's not a full overlap, right? But I think there are some really interesting themes. I just can't express how captivating this film is, and I'm excited for everyone to see it.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm going to read the description of Bear. It's just 2 sentences. Jude, a neurodivergent creative, tries her best to fit into a typical world. While desperately in need of a job, an already tense interview is made even worse by the fact that no one wants to mention the bear in the room. And the bear in this case is actually an actual bear that travels around with you, making the invisible struggles visible, very, very, very visible and awkward.
No,
Yes.
thank you for explaining that because otherwise it's very weird to just start mentioning a bear suit.
Yeah. There's a bear
But
suit, a very prominent bear suit. And this film is it's how many minutes? It's about 10 minutes, right?
10
It's
minutes, yeah.
perfect for people with ADHD. Yeah.
The opening shots are of all these. I mean, the things behind me, like my trinkets and all my things and my plants.
I recognize them. I was like, wait, I remember this from the film.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I thought it looked more interesting. It looks a little more chaotic than I was aware. I wanted to show, like, how do you show organized chaos? So the way I worked it out was like, there are piles of things everywhere in the room, but they're all color coordinated. Just wanting to really set the movie off by letting the audience know this is someone who it looks like a messy life from the outside, but in our minds, it all makes sense. It doesn't
Hmm.
feel like an absolute, it doesn't feel that loud that I'm sure people come into my room and go, "Oh my." And I'm just like, this is my calm space.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when people are like, "Oh, your room is like the inside of your brain." And I was like, "Great. This is I guess it."
It's color coordinated, at
And
least.
again, feeding into imposter syndrome, how do I tell people what it's like and show them what it's like without having an interview, sitting down and just talking about these ideas and these really hard to grasp things? I think people want to believe, but it's still hard to just understand how affecting it is and how out of our control it can feel as well. Because so many ADHD symptoms are things that everyone does, but it's not to maybe debilitating or life affecting degree. So I think that was the thing I wanted to get across.
Because ADHD is just so hard to explain. So using the bear to kind of show that I'm carrying this with me everywhere I go, right? And your job interviewer can see
Yes.
this bear.
And I wanted the bear to feel really helpful as well as mischievous. So it's
Hmm.
that touch of like creativity and it's looking at things, it's looking all around the space and it's noticing things and they're engaging with things. You want to touch everything. But, you can also sit down and get your keys for you and want you to be yourself. So it's all about how our main character, Jude, masks to go into the normal world to try and get this job at a very neurotypical center. So all the color scheme in the outside world is very pastel, very calming, very organized. So it's that contrast with this really colorful character and not boring world, but just like a muted, a softer world around them. And then how do you control the bear or that part of you that's dopamine seeking and interested in everything, while trying to fit in? Because you can't. I think the most interesting thing for me while writing and making Bear, or especially writing, was I didn't know what the crux of it was, what that kind of climactic moment of release would be. Is it she gets the job, she doesn't get the job, what's and that's when I realized, because I was going through some job interviews at this, around the same time, was that you always have to fill out this separate form to tell them, your background and do you have neurodivergence and da 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 da. It's one of those things where it's like, why can't we talk about it? Because it is part of who I am.
Right.
And there's this idea of like, but, for equality, we don't want to know. And you're like, but these are some of my creative strengths and I'm going to work so fast. And yes, I may also have some, slower days, but to not talk about it, I think was the worst choice.
It's like people are trying to be overly polite. At one point, the interviewer kind of leans in and whispers, "My cousin has one of those," right? And whispers it.
Yeah.
It's different in the US. Legally, you can't ask someone who is interviewing for a job if they are neurodivergent in any way or if they have any disabilities. As someone who's applying for a job, you have a choice if you want to disclose or not. Always you have that choice, but then what comes with that disclosure, right? What are the biases that come with that? Why a bear? Why is ADHD a bear, Kate? I have my own theories, but I should hear it straight from you.
Oh, I think your
why
theories...
why not a lion or a bird or a frog?
I think your theories are probably more interesting than the truth, because the truth is that I had a bear costume. I knew I wanted to use it because I had bought it. Well, look, it called out to me in the costume shop and it was 50% off. because it was like an expensive thing. It was 50% off. And I remember I left it and it haunted me the whole next day. And I was like, I got to go back. And I went back and I
Yeah.
bought this huge teddy bear suit. It was a lot of things. And I think there is a lot of history of women and bears in stories and cultural references, and I
Mm.
guess the idea, that word play of a bear and being, bare, what's showing your true self. And then
Mm.
that layer that convinced me to use it was there's something, because it's not a scary bear costume, it's a teddy bear costume. So there's something quite nostalgic and
Yeah.
hopefully cuddly, warming, secure about it. That we have this safety bear when we're growing up, but we grow out of it, or, we're not socially probably feel like we're not allowed to carry one around with us when we're adults. So I
Yeah.
wanted to play with that of like this idea of having this safety thing that's a part of us, but also can take us off the rails. But what are your theories?
I went to the wordplay part of it as well. Hadn't thought of bear and then bear as in Bare. But I was thinking about, it's like it's such a bear to deal with. It's so difficult to deal with, but also like bearing with something has more of a
Yes.
positive connotation. So it's that kind of that two sides of those of us with ADHD. We know that's such a big part of it. And it's also bears, they're just big.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
They're big creatures and they are with you. Your ADHD is with you everywhere you go, but nobody can see it.
And
Right?
they're
And this is,
clumsy. And do you know
and they're
what? There's
clumsy.
probably a layer of that, like, again, dopamine seeking, the Winnie the Pooh honey addiction. That we're just like,
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
me my honey. And I mean, Winnie the Pooh, what an ADHD hero. The hyper focusing on honey pots, the sugar seeking, it's all there.
What other animals would potentially be in the running if you had happened to have a suit?
It's probably situational, because in that instance, there was something about this big, clumsy bear in a small room
Mm-hmm.
walking around below the desk. But again, if you're at a doctor's office, would it be a horse? Like, what's the worst animal to have in any room or any situation for you? I think is probably, maybe it's quite shapeshifter.
Are you ever worried, or were you worried in the making of this film, or maybe just in your life in general, that people won't take ADHD seriously?
Absolutely. There was a moment when we first screened it. One of my friends also has ADHD, and one of our mutual friends went up to them and said, "Oh, I get it now." And it made that other person extremely emotional, because it was that thing of like, you try and explain it to people in 1,000 ways, and it's never, you think it clicks, but it doesn't. And then, so what this film brought was a bit of understanding. And like you said, so she felt like she was being taken seriously or being seen for the first time. It's
Mm-hmm.
so impactful that like it brings up all these emotions. And that to me was the like most amazing thing about making this, because even there's that fear while putting it out there that you're like, what if people see this and they go, no, that's not at all what ADHD is. You don't have
Yeah. Or that's
ADHD.
not a
Oh,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's not a thing. You're making it up. It's not that hard. And that's when you have to catch yourself and go, is that other people saying that? Or is that me telling myself that because I'm
Right.
catastrophizing?
I've had moments in my life where I feel like I'm almost like literally stomping my feet and getting upset because I'm trying to prove and show that something is hard.
Yeah.
That's only with people who I feel completely psychologically safe with. And I know like they're not going to abandon me if I act childish or immature or I lose it in front of them. And what I love in terms of what you did, Kate, is it's so absurd to have and I mean that in the best possible way,
Yeah.
to have this bear traveling around with you, and it's so effective. It's like you have to do something big and outlandish to get people's attention, because it is so subtle the way that ADHD can affect you every day.
Yes. And I think that was it, is like, how do you make something invisible visible, and in a way that's still bringing everyone in on the joke, making it accessible, yet
Mm-hmm.
bring people in on the journey and go, imagine if this, was your situation, and not mention ADHD once in the film.
I was just going to mention that. Yeah, that's amazing.
That it should just
Yeah.
be, this woman has a bear Isn't that wild? We don't need
Hmm.
to know. It's very, I think, especially for a short film, ended up being quite Kafka-esque of like, you're just accepting the bear is there and that people can see the bear and she doesn't have a choice of when it shows up. I think what's interesting is because a lot of other ideas that I'm working on too, people are like, wow, that's so absurd. And I go, is it? All right, maybe that's my thing, is that I don't think it's that wild. I'm like, oh yeah, imagine if there
Yeah.
was just a bear there. It's not like it's sci-fi or something.
I think also in your bio you had used the word absurd. So I mean that in the most the most absolutely positive way. It's creative. It is. I would have never thought of it.
I don't take it with a negative connotation. I think it means just like it's an exciting, hopefully visually eye-catching way of bringing people into an experience without knowing what it is, empathizing with the character, and then afterwards maybe going, "Oh, that's ADHD." Oh, so there's maybe a journey with people watching it as well. And what I also would say is a lot of people who don't have ADHD, but maybe are on the spectrum, or people just feeling othered their whole life or different their whole life. So
Yeah.
really responded to the film as well. So I think it was an interesting kind of catch-all or this absurd visualization that really spoke to people who are neurotypical in general.
I was just going to ask you if people who, have, other acronyms associated with them, other diagnoses, other struggles, if they had seen themselves in the film as well. It sounds like yes.
I think it's a good case of the most personal is the most universal, because I think, I was so afraid the whole time that I wasn't even doing my own experience justice, or that my own experience was false. And then when you put it out there,
Mm-hmm.
so many different people are going, yes, I can relate so much to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing, because yeah, why do you relate to having a bear follow you around? But those feelings, of embarrassment and shame and guilt and wanting to distance yourself from this integral part of you, we
Mm-hmm.
all can relate to that.
Do you have an ADHD aha moment? A moment when you're like, yes, I get it. Yes, I do. I have ADHD. Or, oh, wow, all of this just clicked for me.
I think it happens like once a week, I think it's the little things for me. And again, I find it very useful for people outside looking in, noticing things that I don't pick up on. What's interesting is during the making of Bear, Screen Scotland were also making a documentary called Working Differently, and it's about people who are neurodiverse working in TV and film. And so they came and they filmed the kind of behind the scenes of Bear. In that documentary, there's so many clips of me just constantly, shaking my pencil or moving or dissociating. And I remember they were only there for about an hour and then they left. And I was like, "Oh, you sure you have enough?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah." No, you're doing a lot of stuff that we, can use to show this. I think all the aha moments are still coming, and because it's in those different situations of your life as well. I'm gonna have different ones at
Yeah.
work than I do in my personal relationships.
Well, Kate, thank you so much for being here with me today. Thank you for the film and for the work that you do. I'm going to want to know from all of our listeners, what animal is ADHD to you? So please do write in and let us know. And Kate, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.